Hey everyone, it's Dr. A, and in this video, we're going to take a few moments to discuss the process known as excitation-contraction coupling. And it's this process that you'll see momentarily, which describes the interaction between the nervous system and the plasma membrane of the skeletal muscle fiber. And that will also lead into us discussing what's known as the sliding filament theory. So let's jump into some terminology to get us started. Here are those first three terms that I mentioned: excitation, contraction, coupling. The word excitation here refers to the activation of a nerve, specifically a motor neuron. And it's helpful to note that a motor neuron is a nerve that helps to initiate some type of movement for the body. With contraction, we're referring to the shortening that takes place between the actin and myosin filaments of the sarcomere. And with coupling, this is a term that we can use to refer to the end result of this process, which is a muscle contraction or movement of a given muscle. Through our discussion of excitation-contraction coupling, we're also going to discuss what's known as the sliding filament theory. And this is the most widely known and accepted way of describing and understanding how muscles work. So here's the basis of the sliding filament theory, and hopefully you'll see the connection between this and excitation-contraction coupling. The sliding filament theory says that when signaled by a motor neuron, a muscle fiber contracts as the thin filaments are pulled, then slide past the thick filaments within the fiber's sarcomere. And with this, it's helpful to ask and answer the question, well, what controls the sliding? Well, the sliding can only occur when myosin binds to actin's active sites, which begins by a series of steps in which calcium enters the sarcoplasm. So to begin this series of events, we're going to take a look at the neuromuscular junction, which represents the location of where a motor neuron's ending meets with a muscle fiber, which is the primary site in which the nervous system begins to initiate muscle movement. So first, let's label our motor neuron ending. And within our motor neuron, we have some calcium channels. And going into the motor neuron for a moment, we'll also see a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. And you'll notice that the acetylcholine is contained within these circular units. And we call these circular units vesicles. Now, in the pinkish reddish area that we have here, this is our muscle fiber. And this layer that we're seeing is the cell membrane. And when we refer to the structure for a muscle fiber, we use the term sarcolemma. And within our sarcolemma, you'll notice we have acetylcholine receptors. Okay, so now that we have the neuromuscular junction labeled, we're going to investigate this process, which we can holistically call muscle physiology. And we'll place it into three phases. Our first phase is the initiation phase. And this phase tells the story of what happens when an action potential meets the skeletal muscle fiber. So our very first step is just that. An action potential arrives at the axon terminal, also known as the motor neuron ending. Now that our action potential has reached the end of the motor neuron, this triggers the calcium channels to open. And as these calcium channels open, it allows calcium from the extracellular fluid to enter the synaptic terminal, which we can also refer to as the motor neuron ending. Now, this allows the vesicles within the synaptic terminal to fuse with the presynaptic membrane, which is the membrane or border around the motor neuron. And as they fuse, this allows the release of acetylcholine into the synaptic cleft, which is the space between the motor neuron and the muscle fiber. Next, the released acetylcholine attaches to the receptors on what we call the motor end plate. Now on this image, we've zoomed out a bit to see the sarcolemma. And what we'll see here is a channel embedded within it, which is a sodium channel. And right after our previous step, which was acetylcholine attaching to its receptors, this triggers sodium from the extracellular fluid to enter the sarcolemma, and we call this depolarization, which is another way to say activation of the sarcolemma. This triggers a sequence of events that allows the action potential we noted from the beginning to continue traveling. Now on this image, imagine that we've zoomed in a bit into the muscle fiber so that we can see a structure called the transverse tubule, or T-tubule for short. These are deep grooves that we find on the muscle fiber's membrane. So again, from our previous step, the depolarization or activation of the sarcolemma allows the action potential to continue traveling. And it's here that we'll see the action potential continue to travel through the transverse tubule. Now, as the action potential travels down the T-tubule, it triggers the release of calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, which is the orangish meshwork that you see here, and its job is to both store and release calcium. Now, let's pick up with our second phase, which is the contraction phase. It's here that we'll find a process referred to as the cross-bridge cycle take place. Now, this cycle showcases the particulars of the actin and myosin filaments during muscle activity. So on this image, we've zoomed into the sarcomere, and we get to see the thin and thick filaments. So let's identify our thick filament first, which is myosin. Now, you'll also notice a thinner pink line here in the middle. This is meant to represent our M line, or the anchor for the myosin filament. And it also serves to showcase the center of the sarcomere. Next, let's look at the thin filaments. First, we have actin, noted here by our light blue chain-like structures. And on the ends of these structures, you're seeing the Z line, or the anchor of the actin filament. Now, within our actin filament, we have some other thin filaments to showcase also. The dark purple structure that you see here, this is tropomyosin, and its job is to cover or shield these dark blue circles that you see, which is actin's active sites. And last but not least, we have shown here as a circular object, troponin, our other thin filament. So now that we have our sarcomere labeled, let's resume our process. With the release of calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, calcium begins to bind to troponin, and this causes tropomyosin to shift, exposing actin's active sites. Now on this image, we've zoomed in again on the myosin, our pink structure here, and the actin filament, our light blue structure. And what we're showcasing is a series of actions that initiates what we call the cross-bridge cycle. First, let's remember that in the previous step, calcium bound to troponin, causing tropomyosin to shift and uncover actin's active sites, leaving them exposed. Now, this process technically begins with ATP binding to what we call the myosin heads, the pink club-like structure that you see here. From this, we say ATP is hydrolyzed, meaning ADP and phosphate remain attached to the myosin head. The energy released from this process allows the myosin head to be cocked into what we call a high energy position. From here, the myosin head is able to bind to actin's active site, forming a cross bridge. Now on our graphic at the top here, we're looking back at the sarcomere, and we again have our thick pink structure, which is our myosin, and in the middle we have our M line. So visually, we're looking at the middle of the sarcomere and the two sides of it on both the right and the left. So now that we've already had the forming of the cross bridge, we'll have the release of both phosphate followed by the release of ADP, or adenosine diphosphate, from the myosin head. We'll have the same thing happening on both sides. And what this does is causes the myosin heads to pivot or grab hold of the actin pulling it towards the center of the sarcomere. Now, in our next step, we'll have a new ATP molecule attached to the myosin head, which causes the cross bridge to detach from actin. From here, the myosin head hydrolyzes ATP into ADP and phosphate, re-energizing the myosin head and returning it to its cocked position. Now, one important note to make here: as long as calcium and ATP are present, this cross-bridge cycle repeats, producing muscle tension. Now let's shift gears into our last phase, which is the relaxation phase, which of course represents the time in which muscle activity begins to cease. Now on this image and at this part of the process, we start with calcium being actively pumped back into the sarcoplasmic reticulum, which requires the use of ATP to make this possible. And following this, we'll have calcium detach from troponin, and we'll also see tropomyosin shift, which then covers actin's active sites. Now we return to the neuromuscular junction, and what we'll see here is acetylcholine being broken down. And this is possible due to an enzyme called acetylcholine esterase. We'll show it here by these Pac-Man-like structures. Now imagine that they're eating up or removing the acetylcholine that was released into the synaptic cleft. This terminates the signal at the neuromuscular junction, preventing further depolarization of the muscle fiber. Well, thank you for watching this video. I hope it was helpful, and I look forward to connecting with you again in the next one.